Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we are going to be talking about there's just entirely too much misinformation in the media. It's just going insane about it. Of course, we've been talking a lot about the misinformation surrounding the Don't Say Gay bill. But of course, it's not a Don't Say Gay bill. It's a bill which, it's a parental rights and education bill. That is what the bill is called. That is what the bill legitimately is. But there's another big misinformation campaign going on about a bill in Missouri. So people are going around saying, even really big accounts, saying that Missouri is making it illegal to have an abortion for an ectopic pregnancy, and that sort of pregnancy is when the baby starts forming outside of like the main area where the uterus was supposed to be forming. And so those sort of pregnancies, it is, from my understanding, possible to carry a baby at that point in time, but it is very dangerous and normally not viable. So you would have an abortion because that would be a medical situation where the life of the mother could actually be on the line. And so this bill does not do that, does not ban that sort of thing. The bill is addressing people who traffic in drugs and traffic in the providing of tools for abortions that are already illegal. It does not add extra rules on abortion legislation to make it more heinous than what it is. But people are focusing on this one particular part. Maybe it's because people are like, oh shoot, they're trying to make it this a felony for me to traffic in this illegal stuff that I do. I really want to make sure we can keep having abortions on our sex slaves or whatever. So maybe they're all focused on like, yeah, we got to focus on this part. And I don't even know if they really need to have this particular thing in the bill. I think they're going to retool and reword it, but people are really being dishonest about what this is. And if you research it online, you'll find articles like, and I even like searched it from like a biased perspective. Like I Googled the bill, like Missouri bill doesn't really say that or something like that was how I Googled it. And then I found an article from like a local source is like, no, we're not misrepresenting it or blah blah blah. And I read the article, I'm like, yeah, you're really misrepresenting it, even even in their insistence of how they're misrepresenting it was misrepresenting it. So you could just read the bill, and I'm going to go through it a little bit today to explain it, because if you've been on the web, you've probably seen activists talk about that. And so we've got huge media coordination with the misrepresentation of a lot of bills going on by Republicans, and I heard people talk about it, but I was really disappointed because there's this account that I follow, and it's mostly, he's an OBGYN, and he shows like, oh great, pictures of babies in the womb. And sometimes I've like taken some of his stuff for some good pro-life content. He doesn't say that if he's pro-life or pro-choice or whatever, but he just is like, hey, look at this life. Miracles of life are wonderful. And even sometimes that triggers people who are pro-choice. But he's Canadian. I didn't know he was Canadian. He's like, this doesn't affect me, but from a physician's backtracks and corrects this because he has over 400,000 followers. And I saw pro-life people on his page saying, oh wow, I'm pro-life, but I don't agree with this. And I'm like, so I was going through a couple of comments and replying to people. I'm like, he's wrong. The bill doesn't say that. The bill doesn't say that. I even did a reply or two, like a video reply on my channel. But that's a lot of misinformation that's spread to a lot of people. And that's just really unfortunate. And even if he does a correction, there's a lot of people who aren't going to know the truth. So, but if he tried to research it, and this is a Canadian guy, so he probably, maybe he doesn't know how to find the bill or whatever. But in one article that was like very unfair, it did actually like have the link directly to like the bill. So come on, guys, go read the bill. But if you're looking up articles, there are several articles that explain it this particular way, and with this particular propaganda. And the same thing with the Florida Don't Say Gay bill, which of course is the parental rights and education bill that I think people should be trying to put bills like that all across the country. But the media is really hand in hand as with the DNC being their propaganda arm. And Trump said that the media was the enemy of the people. And I think we are really, really, really seeing a good case for that. I also want to address this story about a man who's living in Russia who is a franchisee of uh Papa John's, which a lot of people don't like Papa John's because he was like the owner was like a Trump supporter or whatever. And people are like, oh my gosh, I gotta boycott Papa John's now because this franchisee person won't shut down his 190 stores in Russia. Even though the international company was like, we're going to cut off ties to Russia, but this person owns the stores and he gets his own supplies, including from another company that he runs. So people were so upset and saying, oh, I really enjoy this pizza, but I can't anymore. I can't support this company. I'm like, you guys really expect him to close down all of his stores? He's been living over there since 2000. So I don't know, it seems like we're going toward this weird social credit kind of thing. And I understand putting on sanctions on Putin and the people around him, and Putin is a bad person. I do not want them to continue what they are doing in Ukraine, but I do not get the virtue signaling thing from everyone else. I just don't. And I don't understand why people expect that all these employees living in Russia need to just lose their jobs, and how a businessman, an American businessman, granted he's been over there for a long time, should just lose out on 190 stores. That is just not plausible. Doesn't make any sort of sense. And I'm going to play for you guys this TikTok star. Maybe you guys have seen it if you've been perusing around the internet. Who and I mentioned her video on what the White House told her about inflation. So we're going to get to all those things today. But before we jump into it, I do want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that I have on the website. Please check out different merchandise that I have in store, like this cool goat hoodie that I got on today. Someone came at me today because they misunderstood one of my TikTok videos. And I was talking about the Jussie Smollett case, and someone was like, why would all these, like, if these Trump supporters are racist and they're homophobic, why would they even watch Empire and know who this guy was? So I replied to that comment and I said, yeah, that's true. Why would all these racist, homophobic Trump supporters know who Jussie Smollett was? And people did not follow the thread of the comments. So I love you guys on my side, but sometimes you can be just as sensitive as people on the left. And so they're like, how dare you say that Trump supporters are racist and homophobic and you don't even know us and blah blah blah. And so I just did a video where I held up my hoodie and I'm like, guys, I made this. This is available on my website. I voted for Trump twice. Like I don't believe that people that just you vote with Trump that you're homophobic and racist and stuff. I'm like, please listen and try to follow the thread of the conversation. So yeah, just a little warning out there. Do not, before you get all angry and super sensitive about something and shoot off half cock, like make sure that you're following the conversation a bit. But anyway, this is the hoodie that I showed them, and you can also get a t-shirt, and it's also available in different colors, so you guys can get that on blacktnews.com along with shirts like this. Like, I voted for Trump and all I got was historic peace deals, and it says stuff like gas under $2 and this lousy t-shirt. So that's something that you could definitely wear around right now, along with the I am not the victim that you are looking for t-shirt. So those are different things that you guys can check up on at blacktnews.com. So before we jump into things today, I do have a video that I want to show you guys. I don't have a meme, but I do have this video, and it is a funny video from one of my favorite content creators on TikTok, and it's pretty timely with this gas situation. So I'm going to go ahead and play that.
What are you doing? Yeah, honey, I'll be home in about 50. Hang on a second. What are you doing? Where the hell do you people get off?
It was never yours to begin with, colonizer.
Yeah, excuse me, I've studied this. Who the hell are you? The fact that you're this mad about it proves that it needed to be done. It's reparations, you bigot. Reparations. Don't worry, sweetheart, I'm recording so he can't oppress you. I got you. What the fuck?
So that is Ross Boss. He's been on there for a minute, the app, and he actually got banned at maybe once or twice, but he's been rebuilding his account, but he's got some good content. But I have seen videos of people talking about people drilling holes in people's gas stuff, like, so I guess they don't know how to siphon, um but don't siphon anyway. But I can see that being a problem as gas prices continue to rise. Like, I remember like a couple years ago when there was like people who were going around just stealing copper everywhere they could in Detroit areas from old buildings and whatnot, just everywhere, so they could get money from that. So um I don't I don't think that's too outside of the realm of possibility, with people just going around trying to steal each other's gasoline, especially since we live in a time where a lot of people are not being punished for crimes. Where people like out in California where they're robbing trains of Amazon packages and like laughing at police, like, I'll be back out in a second. People know that they can go in a store just with a mask on and just take a bunch of stuff and leave and not be prosecuted. So it's definitely worse in some other areas, depending on what kind of crazy George Soros kind of funded prosecutor that you have, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, how dare you say that?" It's true. He's funded a lot of people who are now in positions of power, and it's making our cities unsafe. So watch your cars. Like, I know that's a good laugh and everything, but seriously, watch your cars. Because we could definitely be getting to a point where that sort of thing is happening. So I want to go into this misinformation video with this TikToker um who went to the White House. So if you do not know, the White House is employing, well, recruiting, I guess, and having conversations with TikTokers, and they did recently to brief them on the Ukraine situation. And I guess they also talked about why is gas so high. Jin Saki also mentioned that the Russians hacked the election in 2016. I'm like, we're really going back to that, Jen, but I guess we are. Some people don't know how to, accept the results of the election. And I guess that's still the Democrats. But they don't want to take any sort of blame with the gas prices. I think I showed this Reliant L thing the other day, or Defiant L, I'm sorry, where Biden said, some time ago, when somebody is a president of the United States, the responsibility is total. That's what he said when Trump was president. And so now Biden is saying, speaking to the League of Cities and saying the inflation US right now is due to COVID-19, Vladimir Putin, and gas prices. Like, you have nothing to do with all that, huh, Joe? So they're totally just trying to shift all blame everywhere else and saying it's not his bad policy. So here's this TikToker. She has, I think, 7 million followers, if I'm not mistaken. It's in the millions.
Gas so expensive, and why is the United States inflation rate at a 4-time decade high? I had the opportunity to ask the White House why gas down the street is $7, and here's what they said. The obvious reason: we are getting out of a 2-year pandemic. When use goes up, price goes up. But the call was predominantly about Ukraine and Russia, so how does that relate? Russia is one of the top 3 producers of oil, and it is actually their #1 revenue source. Now, with Putin starting this horrific fight between Ukraine and Russia, nobody wants to work with him and do international trade. So with people being scared of war and limited resources, prices are bound to go up as well. For the people who can't pay $7 for a gallon of gas, there's an app called Gas Buddy that shows you the cheapest gas near you, as well as a link in my bio to donate to the misplaced refugees of Ukraine.
Yeah, so that's what they're telling these kids, and I think she's like 18 or something. A lot of these, when I looked it up, I think I'm gonna do a reply video like, and this is why we should raise the voting age to 25. I can pretty much guess people's ages sometimes by their comments on that app, and I'll be like, this person cannot be more than 15, and I'll go to their profile and nail right on the head. Which, by the way, parents, I really think you should really limit the amount of social media that your kids can have, because I promise you they are embarrassing you on the internet. And how cancellations go, you never know if something heinous that they say will end up costing them a scholarship one day. And I'm really not kidding. There was a story with a person who got a scholarship accepted to a college, and someone had they had said, I think, the N word like maybe 3 years before that or something like that, and someone had like a screenshot or something, and they released that. Like they were waiting for the opportunity to ruin this whole man's career, as the saying goes. And once they did, they lost their acceptance. So I really don't think people should be canceled like that. And I think you should definitely have some grace for kids. But parents, you need to protect your kids as well, and know that they could be saying some crazy stuff. Some of the most hateful, silly stuff that people say, especially like racist stuff, especially since people have put it into the minds of minorities that like black people or Hispanic people, whoever, cannot be racist because they don't possess the institutional power to be racist. And there's all this hate white people stuff that I've seen so many crazy videos of young people saying the most heinous, hateful things, and they think it's okay because you can rag on white people. So obviously, that's not cool. And I would like to think that their parents are unaware of some of the awful things that they're saying. But and it's not just that. It's crazy stuff that when I have discussions about being pro life, and there's people who are like 15 just like laughing at me and think it's ridiculous and like literally impossible to pursue abstinence. So I'm just like, how often do you sleep around, like, and you're just a baby. So I would like to think that that's a lot of talk from some of these people, and I do know that there are people who engage earlier than that even. But parents, please, 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 monitor your children's social media and hinder them from getting that, if at all possible, because I promise you they are embarrassing you on the internet. I don't think I've ever written anything that I've been ashamed of online, really. But even like stuff that I wrote, like when I first got a Facebook, sometimes you'll see memories and you're like, oh, I worded that really silly, or that sounds a little goofy. You're just not as mature as you are when you get older, and you're going to look back and you really are going to cringe at those things. So be an adult and protect your kids, and watch what's on there. So I know I just kind of diverged from what I was talking about, but I think it's really important. So of course, gas prices have been rising dramatically for a while, and people have noticed that since Trump got out of office, that prices were going up. I've played videos where Biden has said, "Hey, we are going to raise gas prices." That's really him fulfilling a campaign promise, really. Well, not saying that the gas prices would go up, but that was just like an obvious thing. But he said, he was asked like, "Hey, you know that presidents in the past have received like big economic boosts because of production and fossil fuel industry. So are you willing to forego that, even at the cost of hundreds of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of jobs, to pursue your greener economy?" And Joe Biden said the answer is yes. And he said things, so there's clips of him saying similar things like that, like shutting down the fossil fuels or ending subsidies and etc, blah blah blah. But to me, that one is the most damning, because they said, are you willing to lose hundreds of thousands of blue collar worker jobs? And a lot of these will be good jobs, and he said yes, to pursue this greener economy. So if that is the case, um and he said this during a Democratic primary, and I know everyone was saying kind of crazy stuff to run further to the left to engage this really, really excited base with the progressives or this far leftists or whatever. But people have to realize that those are very loud people, and they may be engaged, but they're not the core. There that's I would like to believe that is not a huge population of their base, and not everyone is a green alarmist and would be willing to destroy that many jobs, because there's obviously a lot of blue collar workers who are Democrats, who are union workers, who made a massive mistake with Biden. Like after Biden got in office and he's like, we're closing down Keystone, there were unions that were like, oh shoot, like we're not okay with this. And I wrote about this on blacktnews.com when I wrote about Biden remorse. And this was like a month after he got in. I wrote that, maybe not even a month when I wrote this article. That did really well on my site actually, because you guys are experiencing Shatafornia, I suppose. And they supported Joe Biden, but they were like, we're really sad to see that they're willing to pursue these policies that are really just for the alarmists, these extreme climate people in their base. So they knew it was going to cost good jobs, and people still, I don't know, maybe they thought he was lying. Maybe they thought Biden was lying when he kept repeatedly saying these things. But when you're talking about someone saying, I'm willing to make you lose your jobs, I think people need to listen to that sort of stuff. So he said other damning things, even to the last debate with Trump, talking about closing down like oil and stuff. Trump's like, oh, that's a big statement. That's a really big statement. He's like, are you listening, Texas? Are you listening, such and such? And there was a lot of people who had voted by then. And actually, I remember it, the Google results or searching for how can I change my vote, and you could in some states you couldn't, but it was mostly too late. Um, and that's really another reason why early voting is bad. And I hope we don't have a big mail-in situation like we did in 2022 and 2024. We'll see. um but I just don't, I really don't like early voting, and that's a good reason why people would had already like cast their ballots before they got that sort of important information. But even something like that was so damning, people should have known that in the primary. Now they could have gone with someone maybe who was talking a little bit more sense, would be a little more compassionate toward their base, but everybody thought you had to run that particular way. Now people maybe thought Biden was lying because they thought he was more of a centrist. But Biden isn't so much a centrist as he is an opportunist. And when he decided to run, he decided to make some deals with these really, really radical people. I knew people who were like, I would never vote for, like, they didn't like Trump, but they figured maybe things would be okay with Biden. I talked about this before, but I went to an event in Detroit, and there are all these pastors there, and some of them didn't even want to take a picture because they didn't want people to know that they were at this event meeting with people who were associated with the Trump campaign. So they're like, I will not take a picture. Like, if you're taking pictures, let me know and I will step away. I don't want my congregation to know that I'm here. But they are at least they were there willing to hear things out. And so someone had mentioned, like, and this was before Biden was the nominee, and they said, what if Bernie becomes the person? And they're like, that'll never happen. And they were all pretty much against Bernie being the presidential nominee, and I guess would either not vote or suck it up and vote for Trump if that was the case. But Biden went ahead and started pursuing a lot of these policies and gave Bernie a lot of power in the financial sphere. So what does it even matter? Things that people were concerned about with Bernie, not with Bernie being in power. Bernie is still in power. And Bernie and AOC, they're like praising, giving Biden all sorts of praises for his economic policies, for his leftist agenda. So, and one of those pastors who hated Trump, he ended up apologizing publicly on Facebook to my pastor friend who hosted that event, because he could see that he was blinded by his dislike of Trump, rather than coming from a logical standpoint of what's best for me, what's best for my family, what's best for my congregation, what's best for this nation. So now you got to the point where things are really, really bad. Things are going according to their plans. I mean, you have Pete Buttigieg and like uh, Energy Secretary Granholm, who I know as my former governor, uh, during the lost decade, as we call it, saying, go ahead and buy electric cars if you don't like these gas prices. And it's like, I don't think people have the money for these $50,000 plus cars, especially what if something breaks down? The maintenance on those things are very expensive. You're still powering those electric vehicles. They don't get powered from hugs and kisses. And it's still not even like terribly convenient. In Michigan, I don't think they don't even have like any Teslas. I think they were like lobbying trying to get like places built where you could have like tests to sell them right out here. But it's there's not even a ton of charging stations, and it takes a while to charge them, so it's just not terribly convenient right now. So even people who may have the money for it may be like, that's not like a good option for me. Once it is a good option financially, people will do that if it makes sense. But um there's just such a lack of compassion about all these things, such a lack of compassion for the American people. It's kind of like let them eat cake sort of moment. And Jen Psaki keeps lying, saying there's. I saw this clip of some interviews from people who worked in the oil industry, and Jen Psaki keeps saying there's all these permits that they're just not pursuing, and basically it's not our fault if they're not pumping for oil and we're not holding things up. Um, but they're like, that's not true. Just because you may have permits or leases or whatever oil does not mean that there's actually oil down there. And even if you drill, like in there is oil, like if we can't build pipelines to get it out, what does that matter? And then they have regulations holding up financing and all sorts of different things. So for them to just pretend like it's the oil, like the big bad oil producers that are just wasting their time not pumping more oil, that's really ridiculous. It's really ridiculous and very dishonest, but I'm sure they know that. And that's why they have to have these teenagers carry water for them to indoctrinate other people. And so I think I was talking to my sister the other day about why they're doing this, and I think maybe they know that a lot of these kids may not even be engaged to really vote, because it's a really hit and miss with the younger population whether they are going to go out and vote. They've been really trying to engage them for a long time. I think making it as simple as with mail-in voting has really changed the game, at least in the last election, I think, to some degree. But maybe they're trying to maybe push for that again or permanently at some point. But they are trying to just kind of curb and indoctrinate these future voters, to make them believe these lies. So I was kind of joking about raising the voting age to 25, but I think that would be the easiest way to save the country. But I don't foresee that happening very often. So I think it's really important to keep engaging with a lot of these people on a lot of these like platforms and even apps, like TikTok and so on. So if you do want to support Black Teen News and what I do and other people do on there, you can go to blackteennews.com/donate. We keep trying to educate and inform and engage and rebut, but not gonna lie, they a lot of these content creators that spread this misinformation and even spread hate, things that really go against their platforms, their community guidelines, they will get a pass on, and they will ban accounts. Like I said earlier, I played Ross Boss. He's been banned before, and so it is an uphill battle, but there's people willing to fight it. So follow those folks, support them, whether it's on that app or across different platforms. I'm on Twitch, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Getter. I will get on Truth Social. I so look out for me in all those different apps. But the Wall Street Journal also wrote a good opinion piece. It's behind the paywall now, so I don't know if you guys subscribe to it or not, but they did go through Jen Psaki's whole, oh, you can drill here, the leasing thing, and they debunked that went and explained why it was so dishonest. And I did go through that article on the show before. But there's people who work in the industry who just know how ridiculous the White House is and how much they are spinning a web of lies. And again, it's unfortunate that they're recruiting these children. When you want to spread information, I don't think you start calling up TikTokers, especially some who are known for spreading misinformation and hate. But we'll talk about more of that at a later time. So I want to touch on this Missouri bill. So there's a bill in Missouri, and people the misinformation about it is that they are making it illegal to have an abortion if you're having an ectoptic pregnancy. And so that sort of pregnancy is not normally viable. It is possible. I've heard women who said they've had one and were still able to live and didn't have to abort their baby. But in a situation like that, that would be normally a life-saving abortion procedure. Now, if you are a pro-lifer, normally and I guess people have different exceptions they might have, but generally most pro-lifers I'm aware of only have the exception for when it is medically necessary, as in something has to be done or someone will die. um so in this case, most people would be okay with that situation if if the mother was going to die and there needs to be an abortion to save that mother. That's really on the mother if she, does she want to take that risk, or does she want to go ahead and preserve her life. But in every other situation, I'm against abortion personally. I know, like, of official platforms, I think last I looked for, like, GOP was like maybe incest. I I don't think they changed the platform from 2016. So I do think it is rape, incest, life of the mother are the exceptions, which I don't think that those are consistent with the philosophy of it's a life at conception. Which I'll go into, like, a well, if you're saying it's a life and for that reason, and this life needs to be protected, the way that it is conceived doesn't demean whether it is or not it's a life, and choosing to punish it because of that is unjustified. And I understand there's people would consider there's more nuance to it than that, but I don't feel that's why I feel like it's inconsistent. And if you're really a pro-lifer, then in your position is it's a life at conception, therefore it has the right to life, then the only exception that you should have is when, if you do nothing, then both people will die, or what, someone will die. But they're explaining this bill in a way that is really, really heinous to, I don't know, make paint Republicans as the evil. They don't care about women. They just are pro birth. I don't know, but this is a bill that is meant to punish people who are doing illegal, dangerous abortions. I would assume, definitely illegal ones that you might be doing to people who you are sex trafficking and all other sorts of heinous things. But they are zooming in on this one part of the bill that maybe isn't even necessary, honestly, to be in here. I don't think it's necessarily a well crafted sort of piece, and the person who, like, introduced it seemed a little confused on some things when people were pressing on them. But how they are portraying this bill is not how it actually is. So there's this one section in the bill where it mentions um an ectopic pregnancy, and it says the abortion was performed or induced was attempted to perform and induce woman who has an ectopic pregnancy. So the bill does mention that, but they're ignoring what that portion of the bill is even referred to, what relevance it is before that. So here's what it says: a person or entity commits the offense of trafficking, abortion inducing devices or drugs if such person or entity knowingly imports, exports, distributes, delivers, manufactures, produces, prescribes, administers, or dispenses, or attempts to import, export, distribute, deliver, manufacture, produce, prescribe, administer, or dispense any instrument, device, medicine, drug, or any other means or substance to be used for the purpose of performing or inducing an abortion on another person in violation of any state or federal law. So it's not trying to change abortion law, as in, like, I don't know, like you would say, like, hey, we're doing a ban at 15 weeks, or whatever. It's not doing anything like that. This is referring to people who are um trafficking in abortion inducing drugs or instruments of anything of that nature for the purpose of performing or inducing an abortion on another person in violation of any state or federal law. So we're talking about illegal abortion. So I guess this would be in a place of like someone actually doing a back alley abortion, or someone doing it and maybe in a clinic that doesn't meet the standards. So you shouldn't be doing it in those sort of places. So I don't know what the market is for that sort of thing, but this is a law referring to punishing people who are doing already illegal things. And so it goes on to say the offense of trafficking abortion inducing devices or drugs is a class B felony. The offense of trafficking abortion inducing devices or drugs is a class A felony if the abortion was performed or induced or was attempted to be formed or induced on a woman carrying an unborn child of more than 10 weeks gestation age. Okay. The abortion was performed or induced or was attempted to be formed or induced on a woman who has an ectopic pregnancy. So in this case, if someone who has trafficked in illegal drugs or illegal instruments is performing an illegal abortion on someone who has an ectopic pregnancy, which maybe someone is doing this in a back alley for some reason. Like I don't so I don't actually know the need of this particular piece actually being in the bill. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But to say that this bill is making it illegal to have an abortion for an ectopic pregnancy is just not accurate. But that is what the media is saying. That's what people are saying all across social media. That's what people who are big accounts are saying it. There's like I mentioned earlier, there's an account that I follow that I really do like. That has great content just showing life. He's an OBGYN, I believe, and they show MRIs of little babies magnified so people could see the human. And I don't think this is necessarily their goal. I think they're just showing the life as, fascinated sort of doctor. But, to see like a 16-week baby MRI when they're like moving around and jumping around and to see their form and like hiccuping and all that other, you know, to humanize it more. So I appreciate his account, but he's Canadian. He's like, this doesn't even affect me. But as a physician, I think this law is egregious. And he has over 400,000 followers. And I did do a video reply, and I was replying to his comments of different people like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they're doing this. Thank you for speaking up, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, he's wrong about this. He's wrong about this. I'm like, that's not what the bill does. I thought that's not what the bill does. So I was trying to correct misinformation, but there's hundreds, if not thousands of comments on that video. I think it's maybe still hundreds, but there's just so much in misinformation going on, and I don't think that he purposely did it, and I think there's probably a lot of people who are not purposely spreading misinformation, but there are people who do it on purpose for sure. And I know there was one account that has like maybe it's 700,000 followers that a friend of mine replied to explaining how the bill goes, and he like debunked his interpretation of it. And then he's like, I didn't misread the bill, that they wrote it wrong or something crazy like that. I'm like, just explain that you were wrong, apologize to your followers, and hold yourself to some kind of accountable standard. Just hold yourself to some kind of accountable standard. Or TikTok can take them down for misinformation, because they do have that option in their community guidelines. But people are spreading wild misinformation about that. And so the bill also says abortion, if the abortion was performed or induced or was attempted to be performed or induced on a woman who is a victim of trafficking as defined in section 566 200. So if a person is a victim of being trafficked, they're like, if you try to perform an illegal abortion on them, or if the stuff that the drugs that you used or the equipment that you used, it was meant for a trafficked victim, then that's a class section B or A felony. So I would like to think that people in general are against illegal abortions. We're against back alley abortions. You don't want abortions to be done to people who are sex trafficked, maybe used as or trafficked in any sort of way, if they're sex trafficked or whatever. And there have been instances where people have at undercover videos, people going to Planned Parenthood, for example, and asking questions, making it seem like they're people who are pimps or something, and having like young clients so they can come in and come out. And so it's really egregious that this industry does really protect folks in that sort of way who are part of that sort of heinous actions. So the fact that this bill has some good stuff in it, but the media wants to portray it as, oh, they just want pregnant women to die, it it's just so dishonest. And if you Google and try to find things on this article, they will portray it in a really dishonest sort of way. Because when I was looking at, up stuff, and I'm just like, even when I search it for like in a biased perspective of the bill doesn't really say that, they're like, the misinformation around the bill is not misrepresenting it, is what they claim. And I'm like, when I read the articles that these people wrote, and I'm like, no, you are definitely misrepresenting the bill within this article, and people just aren't honest about their interpretation of these things. And I don't think some people, it may be because they don't understand the bills and how they're written. I like to give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt, but I do not believe that there's so many people, especially in the media, who are unaware of how to read these things. Now, I think there's probably a lot of people who are repeating each other's talking points and maybe haven't read them themselves, and they're just rewriting article after article after article. Um, but it's just not cool. And this particular bill is just a few pages long. It's 3 pages long. It's 3 pages long. So I understand people not reading like these federal bills, these big budget bills that are thousands of pages, and trying to trust the media in their interpretation of what is in it, because hey, who's got all that time to read those thousands of pages of bills? As a matter of fact, these Congress people, these senators, they don't read all these bills. That's not good. They should have like a test that you have to pass, like a maybe like a multiple choice, even sort of like test, standardized test about what is in a bill before they have to can actually vote on it. And if you pass if you pass it, then you can go yay or nay. But if you don't, then you just, I don't know, have to abstain or something like that. Maybe that's what we have to do to start being competent about our bills, because we definitely don't need someone like Nancy Pelosi getting up and saying again, hey, we have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. um people will say like, hey, we need to have bills that are just not even more than 10 pages long or 20 pages long or 5 pages long or something like that. So when you get to these house bills that are very, very small, and even some of those bills can be big, but we're talking about a bill that's 3 pages long. And in the case of the Florida bill, the Don't Say Gay bill, that which is actually the Parental Rights and Education bill, that bill is like 7 pages long. And the important part of that is just kind of like the introduction of the bill, and then the meat of the bill. The meat of the bill is like 4 pages long. So for people not to know what that bill is just really egregious. But it's far more egregious how the Democrat legislators have been acting, what they've been claiming it is, and also just how the fact that the media is willing to go along with this propaganda. If the GOP wanted to name the bill anti-grooming bill, or just have that be the nickname, they would not go around saying, hey, the Democrats are opposing this anti-grooming bill. They would not do that. As a matter of fact, they were so upset that Ron DeSantis' spokesperson referred to it as that way, even though that is far more accurate than a Don't Say Gay bill. As a matter of fact, the bill doesn't say anything about being gay, and when it talks about sexual orientation, it does not single out homosexuals at all. It says that, well, for the most important thing is that it keeps teachers and administrators from conspiring against parents to withhold important information about their children in their mental health. So I think that's a good thing, first of all. And the second big piece of the bill is that you cannot teach sexual orientation or identity to grades K through 3. And you can possibly do that extends to other grades if they are being taught it in an inappropriate sort of way. And you may be saying, well, that's too vague. But no, it says inappropriate in regards to whatever the state standards are. So whatever Florida state standards are that people, their legislators or school boards or whatever have decided, you cannot teach these children in an inappropriate way. And I would like to think that we could all agree that you should not be teaching sexual orientation or gender identity, any of that stuff, in an inappropriate way. People are like, oh, kids won't be able to talk about their gay moms or something. That bill doesn't do that. And there is one at the beginning of the bill, it does say it does talk about discussion, and in the actual meat of the bill talks about instruction. Discussion in the discussion part, that is in like the overall view of the bill, but in the actual language of the bill it says instruction. So that means that teachers cannot have some kind of curriculum going forward what they plan to teach or something when they're like, oh, we're going to learn about what it means to be gay today. Like, we're going to learn about all the what it means to be pansexual. Like, those things aren't going to happen in those grades from K to 3. And I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that's unreasonable. And Victoria Hammett, who's one of the people that who was invited to the White House, well, invited up to be part of the conversation. I don't think they actually went to the White House. I think it was a Zoom call. But she did a video the other day, having that someone did a sound of like a child talking about, and I hope it wasn't really a child, but it sounded like a kid talking about like hell, and if you go to hell it's really bad, and the sound went on to say some pretty like graphic things, and I'm like, that's not even accurate. So I didn't like the sound myself. But she had a headline of parents will teach their kids this messed up stuff, but they don't want to teach people that gay people exist. And I'm like, are you just like making that up in your head, or are you still like spreading misinformation about the Florida bill? Because people aren't teaching that they don't exist. Like, what? And 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 just because you don't affirm someone's gender identity or don't want to talk about it in schools or something doesn't mean that people just suddenly pop out of existence. That's not what happens. It's just hysterical emotional language that doesn't have any relevance to real reality. So, but she's a big spreader of misinformation and stuff as well. Actually, she did hit a pretty viral video some time ago about how easy it is to manipulate people. So I think it's pretty interesting that the White House picked her. I'm not surprised though, but definitely not a good pick from them on their end. And also, when she was talking about the Florida bill, the Don't Say Gay bill, parental rights and education bill, Marco Rubio's opponent actually commented in her video, said, oh, I'm so glad you're talking about this, or nice job, or something like that. So I'm definitely going to take his comment and then take some other stuff that Victoria said and make a little hit piece sort of thing going on with that guy. I don't expect Marco Rubio to do it, so I will go ahead and do that, because it's not cool for someone who's running for Senate in Florida to be okay with a young person spreading such wild misinformation to millions of other young people. And we should not encourage stupidity. We just shouldn't. We should scorn it. We should really scorn it. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about today is this crazy story. So this was trending last night. And so Papa John's, which a lot of people on the left don't like because they don't like the CEO and they said he's a Trumper and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember what the whole background story is, but people are like, he's a Trumper. We hate the company, blah, blah, blah. And so Papa John's, like many companies, have said we're cutting ties with Russia. So we're doing all this like canceling. And again, Putin is a very bad man. He's been a very bad man. Um, and Russia has been a geopolitical threat and has been for a while. Even though I recall when Mitt Romney said that back in 2012, that Obama mocked him, was like, "Oh, the 1980s called and they want their foreign policy back." Like, I didn't forget that. But people, I think there's a lot of people out there who really, really, really dislike Russia because they believe that Trump was like was Putin's like gay lover or something like that. Or at least those were the jokes, and that was sort of the association there. So I legitimately still feel like that is a lot where a lot of people's animosity is lying, and of course they're doing the invasion of Ukraine is really terrible, but I do think it's weird that all these companies are locking arms to take a stand against him, but they're, for example, they won't take a stand against China and their human rights violation of what they're doing to like the other Muslim population in those internment camps. Like you have Disney who will make all these films to try to get that audience there, and they made Mulan over there, and even had like a thank you um to the like the police in that area who I guess I think keep them in those in that area. So like why don't you guys boycott making movies over there? Why aren't you pulling your movies? Why are you doing all this business? Um in taking a stand with that. Um it just seems like such weird timing and virtue signaling. And I don't get me wrong, I think I stand with Ukraine, and I don't want Putin to be doing what he's doing, but I think it's so weird that we have this virtue signal sort of ness with in regard to war. So, and I think this story is a good example. If you don't understand quite what I'm talking about, let me just mention the story. So there's this man who he isn't CEO of Jimmy John of Papa John's. I'm sorry, he's not the CEO of Papa John's. He is someone who has a franchise. He's a franchisee, so he has 190 stores that he has in Russia, and so he's like, I'm not closing down my shops. And people were saying, well, we need to boycott Papa John's. And I'm just, to some people, I'm like, did you even read this article? I'm like, did you even read this article? And some people are like, I didn't read the article, but the CEO is terrible. I'm like, why are you even bringing up the CEO? He has nothing to do with the CEO. So why are you mad at the CEO and the company? Because this person who owns 190 stores said he's not going to close down his 190 stores. So you may be saying, well, how can he get away with keeping his stores open? Well, he's been living there since 2000, or at least part time. He's been living there, and so he, after the Crimea situation, he like I guess changed up how he gets his stuff, and so he gets everything besides olives locally, and some of the suppliers is another company that he has. So he's like totally invested into these stores. And he's like, people over there like pizza. He has employees over there who've probably been working for him for a while because, again, he has 190 stores and has been doing this since 2000. It's 2022. This has been a long time. He's been over there making a buck. And people might be like, why is he over there? People will go wherever they can to make a buck. Like my dad and my sister and cousin went to Kenya, and there are people who had Chinese people who had shops, you know, uh selling, Chinese food and having their corner stores and stuff. And people will go where they know there's an opportunity for them to make money somewhere. Okay, not everyone packs up stuff and comes to America and competes with everybody else here. Some of them will go to places like Russia. Okay, so he saw opportunity. Obviously, it worked out for him. He has 190 stores, and people are angry because he will not shut down all of his stores and leave his employees without jobs. I I think that's crazy. And I think it's crazy all the people, and there are quite a few blue check marks who are angry at Papa John's, the company itself, talking about like we're not going to get pizza there anymore. Like this man is not in a, I mean, he has his name because he has these franchises, so there is that association there, but it's not the CEO of the company's fault that he's like, no, I want to keep my stores open. But Putin is the one who's decided to do all these terrible things, and you can put sanctions on him, you can put sanctions on his right hand men and stuff, but asking this man, this American businessman, to close 190 stores, that seems bonkers. What if that like utterly bankrupts him? That's got to be no small dent. You talking about 190 stores, especially since he gets his supplies from like another company which he owns. So that's just really no small feat, and people being angry And not only him, but Papa John's, who already cut off ties to Russia, is just madness. It just doesn't make any sense. And I questioned the virtue signaling a bit. And I talked about this poll the other day, and I couldn't find it, but I did end up finding it. I did include it in a video. And I heard Ben Shapiro talk about this and make this point about all these people who are like posting the Ukraine stuff. Like, is it legit, or is it there's some virtue signal there? Because people, Quinnipiac, I think maybe that's how you say it, did a poll asking people if you were in the same situation and people and like Russia did like a land war in the U.S., how many people would stay and fight for the country? And when you broke it down along political lines, you got some weird results. You got some really weird results. So, among the Democrats, for the stay and fight, you got 40%. Among Republicans, it was 68%. Among the independents, it was 57%. Isn't that strange? We are talking about your own homeland. Where else are you going to go? Like, I understand there's other countries and stuff, and I maybe be willing to take some American refugees. And America is so huge, that'd be crazy to launch some kind of land war. But it's a hypothetical, you know. They're like, if you were in the same situation as the people of Ukraine who are there fighting for their families, for their land, and so on, as you cheer them on, saying, "Yeah, yeah, go fight for your freedoms and stuff," would you be willing to do the same? And apparently, only 40% of Democrats are willing to do that. I think that number is still low for Republicans as well, 68. I mean, at least it's more than the majority, but you're under the majority with these Democrats who are saying that they would not stay to fight for the homeland. That's pretty striking. That is pretty darn striking. So men said 70% stay and fight, women were at 40%. Um and then it broke it down into different age groups. So 18 to 34, 45 said that they would fight, but 48 said that they would leave the country. That's pretty striking. The numbers, of course, go up as far as people willing to stay and fight as it gets older. Like 35 to 49, 59, 57% said they would stay and fight. 50 to 64 said that 66% of them would stay, and only 28% of them would flee. So the younger you are, the more or less like you are to stay and fight for America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, the the free world. But there's other places. If there's, it's got to be pretty bad if someone's gonna be willing to come over here and start a land war. Like, I don't know what it's like in uh Canada and other places. That's pretty gutsy. Someone trying to do a land war in the U.S., but it's a hypothetical. And I I don't know if there's just all this hatred that has been instilled in young people about America, and with the institutional racism and etc., that people feel so disillusioned and wouldn't be willing to stay here and fight. But again, I where are you going to go? Where do you expect to go? Especially if someone has that kind of power to be so gutsy to do a land war in the US. But all these people hashtagging, would you be willing to be as brave to fight for your country? I mentioned the UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell, who said he didn't want to go over to fight for Ukraine, and he doesn't all know what's happening over there, but he just doesn't want to go fight for these corrupt politicians who lie to us, which I can understand his sentiment. I'm not saying um he's right or he's wrong on the issue, but I understand his sentiment. But he said if war came here to Arkansas, he said he'd be willing to die for Arkansas for everything that he loves. So at least give him that, because there's people in his age bracket that are like, nope, I would flee. I'd be a refugee trying to, I don't know, run to Canada or somewhere. And Adam Kinzinger, congressman, he trashed him on Twitter, and I'm like, this is not appropriate. So I talked about that the other day. But again, at least he's willing to stay. So there's a lot of people who are like, we stand with Ukraine. Yeah, you guys fight for your stuff, but who amazingly, I guess, would not be willing to do the same for the United States of America. So this, I think this says a lot about the state of our nation right now, and unfortunately, where we may be going unless there's some kind of big cultural shift. But it I don't see it getting better when you have the White House enforcing their propaganda through TikTok stars who are willing to spread wild misinformation and to be so petty and evil. Like Jen Psaki said, she called the Florida bill, the Parental Rights and Education bill, she called it disgusting. A bill that's meant to say, hey, don't keep information about my child's mental health a secret. She called that disgusting. She's a mother, as she likes to remind people often, to seem more human or something, I guess. She can't understand wanting to be informed about her child. Maybe she doesn't know how it's supposed to work in public school because her kids aren't in one. But you really want to call the bill disgusting? You must know what it's actually about. I'm I'm waging that you got a brief on it in some regard, and then you decided to spin it. So if there's such dishonesty there, and they're recruiting people to continue the dishonesty, I don't know if we're going to have any sort of positive revolution with our youth anytime soon. But that's why I do what I do. I think sometimes it's really helpful for people to hear it from someone who is about their age. I'm way older than a lot of these kids on the app. I know people think I'm in my 20s or something, but I'm in my 30s. But we got to try. We got to keep trying to reach out, and we got to keep trying to spread correct information. And um there are lots of people who had red pilled moments, so it's not all hopeless, but we need a flood of common sense back in the United States of America, or we're going to be in a really bad situation in a couple years. But hey, there's always plan B with raising the voting age. That'll give us a little bit more time than what we have right now. But anyway, that is the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure that you guys go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I have on my website. Please check out different merchandise that I have, like this cool goat hoodie that I got on. I'll show you guys a picture of it. There you go. There's an awesome goat hoodie. I do also have the Denounce White Supremacy Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racist stuff on the back. And I voted for President Trump, and all I got was historic peace deals, border security, ISIS destroy energy independence, USMCA, record low unemployment, gas prices under $2, no new wars, a tax cut, and this lousy t-shirt. And I got all kinds of other stuff. So make sure you guys go to blacktnews.com. If you enjoy what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. And make sure you follow me across all my different social media platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. And I do have a second YouTube page. There's Black Tea News, and that one has a handle. Like if you go to youtube.com/Black Tea News, you'll be able to find that page. Cup of Black Tea News is really new, so it doesn't have enough subscribers to have its own like unique handle. I think you need to have at least like 100 followers or something on it. So make sure that you guys are following it. I do have a link in the bio if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, in the description. So go ahead and click on that second YouTube page and subscribe to both. I'm going to have different content on both of the pages. So go ahead and subscribe to that. And also, if you follow me on TikTok, I do have my Black Tea News page, but I also have True Black Tea. That's my backup, and I do have different content on them. Sometimes I'll repost stuff, but go ahead and follow both. And I do also have a Cup of Black Tea News page as well that I just started, and so that's going to have like clips of my shows, whether I'm doing them throughout the week or when I do my Let's Talk About It when I bring on a guest. And so go ahead and make sure that you guys are following all three. There's three official me accounts right now. I do have like a personal one that I started forever ago, but I have to figure out how to get back in it. But I think I only have like me singing a song on there. I think it's Tomorrow Never Dies from the James Bond film franchise. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for joining in.